Hello, welcome to Frank's School. Resurrection, the movie, my 18th attempt at describing this to you. This is the 84th day of my 5th year in Frank's School. Uh, and what I'm going to do today is rough out a sort of a plan for Act 3 of 5 acts. As I say, I'm not going shot by shot now, I'm just describing what I think could be there. But backing up just a little bit, there's no paving. I listed all the things that did not exist or do not exist in this world of the aldea abandonada. There's no paving. Now, the Portuguese government, along with the light pole and the electricity arriving right away, the other thing that they seem to do immediately is pave all these tiny little, you can't call them streets, the passages in between these buildings. They pave them so it's smooth, getting ready for tourists so they don't break your legs going up and down. I understand why they do that, but that would not be done in this aldea. Mercado semanal, market weekly, that's another way of referring to the feiras. If you wanted to go to Google these in Portugal, there aren't that many, and but there are other ones. Wild bees, boy, I say the filming of this would not be easy. It would be expensive. This would be an expensive movie to make, and how would you do that? But it would be a nice touch if, say, Tom, in his working in the woods, found wild bees and their honey as well, or nurtured them, or they could start a beehive that weren't wild, I guess. Drought, if you needed to have more drama or tension, drought is a problem there in Portugal some years. And fire is a huge problem in that area of Portugal. That's partly, I'm quite sure, because the hillsides have been abandonadas. They've been abandoned, and they've grown back into this brush when they were grazed off by sheep and goats. I doubt if it was the same problem, but in any case, it's a problem. At Benfeita, when I was there, down at the post office, I guess it was, there was even a diagram to show where the drought dangers were, right in that. It was such an annual problem. And o nosso querido mês de agosto, our beloved month of August, that film, the only Portuguese film I've ever seen all of, they have, as part of that story, film footage of a forest fire. Actually, I think I explained it elsewhere, that when I was in Portugal, the first time I ever drove around Portugal, back in 1970, I think it was 1970, my wife of the time and I actually almost had to stop and fight a forest fire, but when they realized that we were tourists, they just let us drive on through. But they were stopping people on the roads to fight these forests because of the pine. It's a big problem there. All right, anyway, that's just sort of take it or leave it. But Act 3, mountain bikers. Now, I would imagine this act starting, which would be one of those jolts, right when the viewer thinks that they understand what's going on. All of a sudden, the camera could be zooming down a road in the mountains of Portugal, in the mounted on a helmet, say, of a mountain biker, going through these guys dressed like in these wild outfits with these wild colors. It would seem to be a world away. But I know I see a lot of these online because I have a friend, Luis. I won't put his whole name there, but that's his whole thing in life, is to ride he's Portuguese, to ride his mountain bike with his friends through these mountains, right through the areas that have these villages, some of which are still populated, so many look abandoned. Anyway, it would start with that zooming along, but then one of them would catch sight down through the woods maybe of what was going on at the aldea. and you could even have him wreck, or if you wanted some excitement, or slam on the brakes and look down through there, or somehow have them encounter this world that has been developed in Act 1 and Act 2. Brigadoon comes to mind in a way. I mean, coming out of their modern world with this modern sport, with these modern outfits, to see that, well, this would be the arrival of apprentices. I mean, at first maybe one, and it could be developed, would go down there and see this and just become enamored of the world that he saw. And his friends might just be thrown into confusion, like, why did he stop? Where did he go? And eventually more of them would go down as well, and they'd be made welcome. They'd look very strange in their wild outfits on these socalcos. But they would be the apprentices. And in a way, this would be what's called Deus ex machina, I think that's the way you say it, where in a plot, sort of out of the sky, something happens that saves the situation. In other words, these 7 people really, with a noble idea, could be portrayed as being overwhelmed, really, by the work, and there's so much to do. Now remember, in the background in this movie, there's this whole army of woofers that are helping to actually make this happen, to do the gardening, to do the work, to transform this aldea. But anyway, they make it possible, and they come back the next day, and or maybe even stay. I don't know. But anyway, this would be the arrival of a new characters, and the apprentices would need their own leitmotif. I have no idea what the timbre would be, or the instrument. I really don't know. I haven't really thought about that. All right, so that would be maybe the way I would start it. Now, developments within Act 3, the shops would be coming to life, the socalcos, the gardens on the socalcos, and if you want to see what they look like, with monolithic cultivation, if you go to Facebook and look at my page, the image that's there on my page, what do you call it, my profile or something like that, is a picture of Portuguese socalcos. The mill, what's going on there at the mill, and it coming back to life where Festus is working. With that first trip down to the Feta, Marion and Astrid, they would have come back not only with wheat, but with barley, which makes beer possible, maybe even malt. I don't know about the malt part. With barley and piglets, a couple of piglets, which would become Batch's delight. He just virtually fall in love with these little piglets. Of course, they're necessary for the ecology of the aldea. They have an absolute niche in that kind of a culture. But anyway, they would then become Batch's best friends. Now grapes, not that they would bring them back, but the issue of grapes and vineyards and the wine, which becomes possible. Not sure about that. In parts of Portugal, there are incredible socalcos that are monolithically cultivated in wine, in grapes for wine, in the area of Porto, the river that comes down. Well, port wine is because of it. O Porto, it's also called. But in Minho, which is further to the north, probably not that many people realize this, but I'd looked into it. By law, there, 200-300 years ago, the quintas, the quintais, were not allowed to be pure grapes. They could only grow their grapes around the edges of their properties, around the borders, because the center had to be held open for grain. This was a matter of national security, and it's part of the reason that Minho has this unbelievable look like the Garden of Eden, because it's not a pure stand. So I'm just not so sure what to do about the grapes, whether or not they were already there, and if they were pruned in time, they could. It would be nice. It would be a nice touch. I don't know. That would be tricky. But with barley, beer could be brewed, and with this, of course, wine. At a certain point, playing cards, that helping hand of Marion. If you could develop the idea that the people, this was all fine and great, but then the evenings got long and it got boring. Well, what do they do with each other? They don't have video games. They don't have television. His helping hand could come in with 2 decks of cards. I think I have. Here we go. I had once been teaching elsewhere that a deck of cards and 2 of them, that could keep 4 people very happy and very entertained for an entire year. That right there cost about $2, $2.50. I contrasted that actually as part of decentralism with the world of computer games. Now Festus bows to Bryn. The tension, I'm thinking right along, there's this sexual tension about Festus. He is young, he is strong, he is buff, he's angry. And he notices very early how breathtakingly beautiful Bryn is. And of course then he's also at one point led down to the mill by Carrie, the lesbian. But you know, the viewer could be left in doubt about Festus's intentions. How does he lust after Bryn, and how strong, and what's he going to do about it? Well, Bryn is not available for reasons I have not really explained. But at some point, I would like that tension to be resolved by Festus actually bowing down to her. Now, Marion, the old man, not only bowed down to her, he kissed her feet. Festus, in bowing down to her, would take that position of the medieval knight bowing down to the lady. In other words, Bryn would become, for Festus, this untouchable lady, the ultimate in ladyship. That's a whole thing that the Western world seemed to have gotten from the Arabs back around the year 1200. What's your name? Eleanor of Aquitaine at her court. I discussed that. Well, anyway, that would resolve it, so that no, Festus was ready to worship Bryn, but not do her any harm. And then finally, by the end of Act 3, all of them would go down to the Feta. But by now, they would have products to sell at the Feta. Festus would have been making tiny metal chess pieces. Tom also would have, again, the show and tell, he would have carved a chess set that were big, and he could take them down to the Feta. They would have things to exchange because these people are craftsmen. Leather work. So they all go down to the Feta with the cow cart, except for Marion. He stays to watch the goats and take care of things. And then at the very end of Act 3, the instruments come out again, but this time not played as solos, but played as an ensemble. We have 7 musicians, and they would play something together. All right, that's Act 3. Bye for now.